Ladies and gentlemen, I am back with the 2021 NFL Draft quarterback rankings. Today, this is the most intriguing position right now because of this NFL Draft, because of this quarterback class. We really don't know what's going to happen involving trades and where a lot of players are going to fall. Now, this isn't a mock draft, but this is my rankings of the players. Of the quarterbacks, I should say. This is just my personal opinion. We'll have 10 of them. But remember, Jesus is king. He always will be. And yeah, if you have any questions about that, let me know in the comments, and I'll be glad to help you on that path. But without further ado, let's get into this. Without further ado, let's jump into this. It shouldn't be any surprise. Number one quarterback is Trevor Lawrence, and I don't know how many times I have to say it and other people say it, but Trevor Lawrence is a generational quarterback. In Clemson, he only won one national championship, which does surprise me because obviously he won it his freshman year. His sophomore year, he lost to Joe Burrow, and then last year, he lost to Ohio State in the semifinals. But in at his time in Clemson, he had 758 completions on 1,138 attempts. He completed 66.6% of his passes. He threw for 10,098 yards with an average of 8.9 yards per play. He tossed for 90 touchdowns, 17 interceptions. His longest play coming was 87 yards. He took 43 sacks, and he had a passer rating of 164.3. And just by looking at those stats, that's incredible. 90 touchdowns, 10,000 yards in 3 seasons, 66% completion percentage, and then that passer rating. I mean, what don't you like about Trevor Lawrence? He is a generational type quarterback, and Jacksonville's got their guy for a long time. Now for my number 2 one, it's one that might shock you guys, but it's Justin Fields. If you've been following this channel since the late NFL season, week like 15 or something like that, you'll know that Justin Fields has been my guy for a couple of years now. I've watched him coming out of high school and going into the Elite 11. And this season, he's remained as my number 2 quarterback. If I was the Jets, I would take Fields at number 2, personally, if I was the GM. I think he is a phenomenal talent. And he's my guy in this quarterback class. This is the guy. If my Broncos can somehow land him, I will be ecstatic. But in his time at Ohio State and a couple of appearances at Georgia, he had 423 completions on 618 attempts. He had a 68.4 completion percentage. He passed for 5,701 yards. He averaged 9.2 yards per play. He threw 67 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. His longest play was 65 yards. He took 56 sacks, and he had a passer rating of 178.8. Now, obviously, it's a smaller sample size than Trevor Lawrence, but to me, his stats are almost identical. He did play only 2 seasons in that Ohio State offense, and for people who are like, oh, well, he played at Ohio State, blah, 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 blah. He's going to be a bust. Look at Dwayne Haskins. Okay, don't look at the school. You have to look at the player. And Justin Fields was a phenomenal player. I mean, absolutely outstanding. The only knock that I really have on him is him holding the ball too long. Other than that, he can use his legs to pick up the first down. He's got a tremendous arm. This guy is the real deal, guys. Don't be surprised if he's a top quarterback in a few years from now. Number 3 for me, it's Zach Wilson, and I know a lot of people have Zach Wilson as their number 2 quarterback. For me, he's number 3, and I know I can't really blame him for this, but it's the level of competition that BYU had to play. When they played Coastal Carolina, when they were playing a ranked team, Zach Wilson struggled a little bit. I won't lie. He did struggle. Obviously, he's going to be a great quarterback, and we've seen players from small schools just have great success by not when they didn't play any competition in college, and I think Justin Fields will succeed. But for me, it's just that small factor that's knocked him down, and I guess the fact that I've been a Justin Fields fan for a while now. But at his time in BYU, he had 566 completions on 837 attempts. He completed 67.6% of his passes. He threw for 7,652 yards. He averaged 9.1 yards per play. He threw 56 touchdowns, 15 interceptions. He had his longest play coming at 78 yards. He took 53 sacks, and he had a passer rating of 162.9. And Zach Wilson and Justin Fields are almost identical play styles. I mean, they both have a huge arm. They both can extend the play with their legs. I mean, it's just who you prefer. Personally, I prefer Justin Fields, but if Zach Wilson's your number 2 quarterback, I really don't blame you. Coming in at number 4, it's going to be Trey Lance out of North Dakota State. Now, I will be honest with you. Trey Lance has grown on me since the start of the draft season. And by start of the draft season, I mean about a week after the 2020 NFL draft, I started doing my research into the top prospects for the 2021 draft. And I was like, wow, I mean, Trey Lance, he was not one of the top quarterbacks for me. I will say I had Trevor Lawrence 1, Justin Fields 2, and then I think Jamie Newman 3, and then I think I had like a Brock Purdy or something 4, and then Trey Lance 5. But let me tell you, after going back, sitting down, and watching a bunch of film on Trey Lance, he has grown on me, and I do think he's going to be a great quarterback in the league. I'm kind of skeptical about him playing at North Dakota State and then him only having one game this season. So, I mean, that's what was concerning for me. But after doing the tape, I think he's going to be a good quarterback. He had 208 completions, 318 attempts. He had a completion percentage of 65.4%. He passed for 2,947 yards. He averaged 9.3 yards per play. He threw for 30 touchdowns and only 1 interception at North Dakota State. His longest play was 88 yards. He took 15 sacks, and he had a passer rating of 173.8. Obviously, it's a small sample size. He had that one great season throwing 30 touchdowns, no interceptions, and then he had the one game this season. It's obviously a small sample size, but you know, from what he did produce, he would be an ideal quarterback to develop, because there's still a lot of things that Trey Lance needs to work on to improve in his game. So he doesn't have many things he has many things that he needs to work on, but if he goes to the right situation with the right offensive coordinator and coaches, they can kind of mold him into the type of quarterback that they want him to be, so he can start developing these better habits. And he doesn't, like, for example, for many 4-year starters, they have some of them have just a bad habit, and it's hard to go away. But with Lance, while he's working on things, it's easier to develop and mold that, and I think he'll be a great prospect. Now, number 5, Mac Jones. Will he go number 3 to the 49ers? Find out in my mock draft coming out in the next few days. But, you know, he's a great leader, great teammate. You know, Mac Jones isn't a bad quarterback. I still have him going in the first round. I think he'll go top 15. Will he go 3? We'll have to see. But at Alabama, he completed 413 passes on 556 attempts. He had a 74.3% completion percentage. He threw for 6,126 yards. He averaged 11 yards per play. He threw for 56 touchdowns and 7 interceptions. with his longest play being 94 yards. He took 16 sacks, and he had a pass rating of 197.6. And Mac Jones isn't a bad quarterback by any means, but he's definitely not one of the top four. I guess how I kind of look at it is back in the 2018 class, you had Baker Mayfield, Josh Rosen, Sam Darnold, and Josh Allen. And that's who I would say are Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields, Trey Lance, and Zach Wilson. And then Mac Jones is kind of Lamar Jackson. Obviously different play styles, but kind of put in similar situations within their draft class. Except I do think Mac Jones is going to go a lot earlier than Lamar Jackson did. The sixth quarterback is going to be Davis Mills out of Stanford. Now, these are guys that are not probably going to go in the first round, maybe second, third, fourth, fifth, somewhere mid-late rounds. And Mills out of Stanford, he was pretty productive. He had 287 completions, 438 attempts, 65.6 completion percentage. He threw for 3,468 yards, 7.9 average, 18 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, 54 yards being his longest play. He took 23 sacks and had a passer rating of 141.9. Next is actually going to be Kyle Trask. When I've looked around a bunch of the Broncos fan pages and someone's like, "Oh yeah, what if we took Trask in the later rounds?" They're like, "Oh, I'd absolutely hate this pick." And to each their own opinion, but to me, I don't think Trask is a bad quarterback. He had a bad outing against Oklahoma, yeah, but honestly, for me, he does struggle, and there are a bunch of things he needs to improve on. He is a project quarterback, but to me, if the Broncos took him like fourth round, I would not be upset. I think Trask can be a good quarterback. He just has to develop a little bit more. And at Florida, he had 552 completions, 813 attempts, 67.9% completion percentage. He threw for 7,386 yards. He averaged 9.1 yards per play. He threw 69 touchdowns. Nice. 15 interceptions. His longest play was 71 yards. He took 43 sacks and had a passer rating of 168.5. Now, as I said, Trask is a developmental quarterback, and I do not think he should go in rounds 1, 2, or 3. If he goes in 3, I won't be mad, but I feel like that'll be a little bit of a reach. But yeah, he had amazing weapons at Florida. He had Kyle Pitts, who is the weapon in this draft class, and then he also had Kadarius Toney in the slot to throw to. So two amazing targets to throw to, and yeah, Trask, just a developmental quarterback. Next for me is Kellen Mond out of Texas A&M. I'm not a huge Kellen Mond fan. I'll be honest with you. I'm not a huge fan, but I have him ranked here. And at Texas A&M, he had 801 completions on 1,385 attempts. He completed 59% of his passes. He threw 9,661 yards. He averaged 77.1 yards per play. He threw 27 interceptions with 81 yards being his longest. He took 91 sacks, and he had a pass rating of 132.0. And obviously, I forgot to put the touchdowns on here, but yeah, I mean, I'm just not a huge Kellen Mond fan personally. Personally, I don't want my Broncos to draft him. I'm just not a fan of Kellen Mond. Next is Jamie Newman. And I have Georgia/Wake Forest because obviously he played for Wake Forest, transferred to Georgia, then opted out, and is now coming out for the NFL draft. So at his time, I guess, at Wake Forest, he had 306 completions for 506 attempts. He completed 60.5% of his passes. He threw for 3,959 yards. He averaged 7.8 yards, he averaged 7.8 yards per play. He threw 35 touchdowns, 16 interceptions, 70 yards was his longest play. He took 34 sacks and a pass rating 142.7. And this is a guy who I wouldn't mind the Broncos taking. I would rather have Jamie Newman over Kellen Mond, personally, for the Broncos to draft. Next is Brady White out of Memphis, and I believe this is the last quarterback in the top 10. And, I just get Paxton Lynch flashbacks when I think of a Memphis quarterback. I personally, I don't think we should draft him. Will he get drafted? Maybe not. You never know. But he had 794 completions on 1,281 attempts. He completes 62% of his passes. He threw for 10,949 yards. He averaged 8.5 yards per play. He threw for 91 touchdowns. He threw 31 interceptions. His longest play was 92 yards. He took 72 sacks, and he had a passer rating of 152.6. And, personally, I don't think he's gonna get drafted, but we'll see. I'll give my projections of each of the quarterbacks. Trevor Lawrence, first round grade for me. Justin Fields, first round grade for me. Zach Wilson, first round grade for me. Trey Lance, first round grade for me. Mac Jones, first round grade for me. Davis Mills, third round grade. Kyle Trask, third to a fourth round grade for me. Kellen Mond, sixth round grade for me. Jamie Newman, I'd say fifth, sixth round grade. I know I have him ranked below Mond, but Mond was just way more productive. I like Newman's upside over Mond. But yeah, fifth, sixth round for me. Brady White, seventh to undrafted grade from me. Thank you so much for watching, guys. And the wide receiver rankings will be coming out tomorrow, and I hope you enjoyed. Peace out.